there, and welcome to another episode on the Let's Talk Wellness with Shal podcast. My name is Shalini. I'm a corporate tech professional and a wellness coach. The vision of this podcast is to empower you with knowledge on holistic wellness and self-care. Today, I'm very excited to welcome my fourth international guest speaker, Adrian. Adrian is joining us from Spain. Adrian specializes in empowering women over 40 to reclaim their vitality and live life to the fullest. Adrian is an integrative health practitioner and a precision nutritionist. Through personalized support and guidance, she addresses a range of concerns, including perimenopause symptoms, fat loss, energy levels, sleep, quality, stress management, recovery, and resilience. Her holistic approach helps clients overcome these challenges and rediscover their true selves. By working with Adrian, women not only regain their vitality, but also find the energy and resilience to support those around them, ultimately leading more fulfilling lives. So welcome, Adrian.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. I'm so happy to be here. And I just love this conversation around midlife. And I love that it's getting bigger because I think there are so many resources now available to us that weren't available to our moms and, other generations. So it's really, really exciting.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is also one of the most common topics, right? That's at least I hear as a wellness coach, and just, when I go to yoga classes and when I talk to other women, they're all going through this, like 40 plus. Oh my gosh, like I'm going through some of these symptoms, or, trying to burn my fat. Like, what do I do? So, I'm so excited to talk about this topic. But before we get in, how's the weather there in Spain, and what's the time?
Well, it is 8 o'clock here at night, so I'm 9 hours, I think, ahead of you, and it is sunny as usual. It's almost always sunny here, but we do have actually a cold season, even though we're in southern Spain, which is near Portugal, and you think it's kind of like mild all year round. And while we might not get snow, it is chilly. Like it's down into the 40s in the morning and kind of like 50s and 60s during the day. So, it's all relative, but not too bad. I can't complain.
That's what I was going to say. Chilly is relative. So 40 degrees is, yes, we could take that any, but awesome. All right. So we'll get to our topic. Really, it's, the truth about fat loss after 40.
Yes.
Women. That's really our topic. So I would love to just have you talk a bit about your journey. How did you get to this specific focus in the niche around women and even just discovering this path?
Yeah, absolutely. I did not go to school for anything health and wellness related. I just was always loved exercise. And I would say I always loved nutrition and exercise. I grew up eating very healthy. My mom is a wonderful cook, always cooked healthy meals, but I never grew up knowing anything about nutrition. But I always loved to exercise, and I became a marathon runner in my early 20s. I ran, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It was all I did, but it was cardio, cardio, cardio. I knew nothing about strength training, and like many of my peers, and I knew nothing about nutrition. I just knew I had to do as much cardio as I possibly could, right? It was a stress reliever and all of that. Well, then fast forward to, my early 20s to I have 4 children, and that becomes very difficult in your mid to late 30s when I'm starting to have hair loss and severe anxiety, and migraines are getting worse. And then all of a sudden I'm bloated all the time and my digestion is messed up, and I don't have any idea where it came from because this has worked for me up to this point. So then I started getting the training on nutrition, which I knew. I was like, what's a protein? What's a carb? Like, I didn't know. I knew nothing about nutrition. So once I got my nutrition kind of cleaned up and in order, and not in a restrictive way, but just eating what I was supposed to be eating, and actually more. Most of my clients, 99%, come in way under eating. So once I was eating enough to fuel my body, and I started feeling so much better, and then I was strength training and I was feeling stronger, I thought, oh my gosh, I have got to share this. Like, I have to be able to do this as something that I share with more than just my neighbor and my friend down the street. So that's when I got my certification and started doing that. And then I kind of niched down to perimenopause when I personally entered perimenopause. And I was like, hold up. Again, I'm reaching this point where I have been doing the macros and I'm doing the nutrition and I'm doing the strength training, and I feel bad again. And again, I'm going through this phase of I need to focus on my stress, and all of a sudden I'm not sleeping, and all of these different things are changing in my lifestyle, and I had to kind of figure a way through that. And so when my clients were coming to me saying, "Hey, Adrian, like I've been your client for 6, 7 years, 8 years, and something is not working for me here," then I went on to get my training so that I could help with those other aspects to make it a little bit more, well-rounded.
So is that why you kind of picked that niche of 40 plus
Yes, I
women?
mean, it was really, I mean, I didn't niche down till 40 plus until I became I mean, I'm 45, so until I became 40 plus, and then all of a sudden I was like, wow. And again, this is something women over 40 need to know. It's not just about nutrition and exercise. There are a lot of other factors at play at this age that make it really, I mean, that make it really tricky. So, I mean, if you're listening and you are struggling with this and you feel like you're doing everything, it is not your fault. It is hard. I mean, it is tricky, and there are a lot of nuances there that you have to kind of tweak these levers to see what is going to work for you.
So can you just help just break that down for the audience? What is perimenopause? Or
Right.
typically, on an average, what is the age, when women kind of go through that phase?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, menopause is just a day, right? Menopause is the day that you hit 1 year without a period. So, and then after that, you are considered post-menopausal. And then perimenopause is kind of like this, actually can be 10 years, which I remember calling my mom from the doctor's office, and I was like, oh, she's like, well, I didn't have menopause till 52, but I started having irregular periods. And when I was 42, I'm like, 42, mom, like, why didn't you tell me this? So the symptoms can start, up to a decade before that. And you kind of like look at your mom and different factors, and you can kind of subtract from there and see like, okay, could this be, part of perimenopause, these symptoms that I'm experiencing, and kind of go from there. So that's how sort of the medical community defines perimenopause.
So how does one even know, are they in that phase?
It's hard because, the doctors really don't like to, and I just went through this personally with my own physician. They don't really, they can test hormones, but it's so variable depending on where you are in your cycle. And for me, I was having very irregular cycles. So my hormone levels, my estrogen levels, my progesterone levels would those levels depend on where in your cycle you are. And if you don't know that, it's very difficult to test. So there is limited testing available. I think that can help. But if you can't, if you're having irregular periods, if you are, struggling with fatigue or increased bloating or fat around your midsection, or like all of these symptoms combined, and you're kind of in that age range, you can say like, okay, I think I'm starting to experience some symptoms. We really don't have to test for that. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not, but we can certainly do some things to combat, all of those symptoms that are coming up.
And the other thing I want to go back to that you mentioned, right, which is it's not just about nutrition, it's not just like, about doing all this cardio all the time, but there is something about strength training, sleep, and
Yes.
everything else, right? So to me, this is again this whole holistic wellness where you look at a lot of different, angles, right? And I'm curious, what's your take on strength training? Because I know a lot of information is out there on social media. I mean, for myself as well, I was never big into strength training specifically, but I would say over the last 6 months, I've probably been my best I've ever been in terms of really finding dedicated time to go do weights, to go do some kind of strength and not just cardio or running and
Right.
tread. So I would love to get your review on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, strength training, and you hear it, all the time, protein and strength training are probably like the two biggest things. If you're in this world, especially like I know my Instagram, I'm sure your Instagram is filled with all of this information. And it's because we're trying to stay ahead of that muscle loss. So one of the reasons it's harder to lose weight as we get older is because we're losing that muscle at, a certain percentage a year. So many, I'm not even going to give a percentage because there's so many different numbers out there, like 5%, 7%, whatever, after age 35 that we're losing muscle. And you've got to stay ahead of that. So we've got to constantly be building muscle in order to stay ahead of that curve. The other thing that muscle does is it really is the primary determining factor of our metabolism. So when people say, I'm having a harder time losing weight, it's so hard after 40, it's so hard after 50, the number one reason for that, hormones play a role, of course, sleep, all those things play a role, but the number one factor that plays a role in your metabolism, which is how many calories you're burning at rest, right? Everyone wants that to be the most you can possible, right? Is the amount of muscle mass you have. Because the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you're burning at rest. So that's how we kind of stay ahead of that curve and, keep our weight in check and keep our body composition in check. Of course, it's important for bones, bone density and mobility and functional movement. But, that when people come to me for fat loss, it's like, okay, well, we need to start building muscle. And then that in turn will burn more fat over the long haul.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so what on an average would you
Mhm.
even recommend, right? Just from strength training versus cardio. Just curious, just from an exercise perspective.
Yeah, I mean, not that much. It's really not as much as you'd think. I mean, I personally strength train about 3 days a week, 30 to 40 minutes. I'm kind of in and out, but I'm like very focused, I'm kind of like going through my things. And we want to be lifting heavy. So that is one of my biggest tips for people is, these classes where you have like the 5 pound weights and you're doing, 30, 40 reps, that I don't want to say it's a waste of time. It's not a waste of time. But if you really want to maximize your time in the gym and get the most like bang for your buck in terms of your investment, is you want to be lifting heavy so that you are lifting to failure, meaning you cannot do another rep by about 10 to 12. If you're doing more than 12 reps, you need to go heavier weights. So that's one way that you can really, not be in the gym for hours upon hours, is you really only have to do 8 to 10 reps per set.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, I know when I started personally, right? I mean, just even that 8 pound and the 10 pound
Yeah.
was
Uh-huh.
hard. I mean,
Hard.
to
Yeah.
be honest, because I guess obviously if you never do it and you got to start somewhere. But I think
Absolutely.
I get your point because now I feel like, yes, at the 15 and 20, I'm actually getting better. But of course, it took me a while. It's not like just, a couple of weeks and you're already there.
Sure.
But no, I love that. So it's like if you're doing 10, 12, and it's easy, well, that means, it's giving you a warning sign. Hey, you can do a little better.
Yeah, which is great because it's so fun because you can actually, that's something that's so measurable. Like, oh my gosh, I have to be getting stronger. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to lift these heavier weights. Like these that were light for me, 4 or 6 weeks ago now, or were heavy for me 4 to 6 weeks ago. Now they feel lighter and I can actually go up. And that's kind of like oh, okay, I really am building more muscle. And that means you're on the right track. So.
So that's a great, yeah, way to break this down. And I'm also curious, I mean, just from all of the women and clients that you have, right? What are some of the common barriers, you notice, right? Or what do they come to you with,
Mhm.
especially 40 plus?
I mean, most people come to me for fat loss because that's what I specialize in. But, when we kind of break it down, there are so many other things going on during this period of life. I have 4 children. There are two of them are teenagers, so I'm dealing with their hormones and my hormones. We've got parents who are aging. We've got some of us, major like life transitions where we are experiencing more stress than we ever thought that we would at this age. Like you think when the kids are little and they're diapers, this is
Yeah.
going to be, it's going to be so much easier when they get older. But then all of a sudden, like all of these things are happening at the same time. And so they're like, Adrian, I'm not sleeping very well. I'm up every night at 3 a.m. I'm, having the hot flashes or whatever the case may be of these symptoms, and I don't feel good in my body, and so, and then like on top of all that, I don't feel good. Like I don't feel like I have very much energy. I can't fit into my clothes and I'm frustrated and I feel like I'm sort of eating clean and doing everything by the book and nothing is moving. So that's really, when they come to me for that, it's okay, let's not just look at like how many calories are you eating, because that's really what a physician oftentimes will say, just need to be in a calorie deficit, but it's really not that simple. Like we have to have the energy to get through our day and deal with these, stressful life things, but we also want to meet our goals. So it's definitely a balance and looking at everything going on in their life. Like when you're in your 20s, yeah, you can wake up at 4:30 in the morning and get this workout done before work. But in your 40s, like it just doesn't work that way. We just have to be more picky about what we prioritize in our day, and sleep is, is a big one.
Yeah, no, my gosh. I don't know how you do this with four children, but I'm just like, I mean, I have two girls. Of course, my older one is now in college and the second one's almost there. So I
Yeah.
think it's a little different because I can totally empathize with you when the whole teenage phase and
Yeah.
trying to do it all, right? Plus, I also work full time. So it's like,
Right.
how do you balance all of this? So I think
Yeah.
it's a constant journey. Of course, to your point, it's about prioritizing, reprioritizing. I mean, this is like a lifelong
It
journey,
is.
right?
Yeah. And a daily journey.
Exactly, because every day you never know. I mean, whatever life
Yes.
throws at you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I was a little curious. I guess the way you then work with your clients is you look at nutrition, you look at exercise, you look at sleep. So there's multiple things you take into consideration.
Right. And so we start with, I call it sort of like our bread and butter, because nutrition and exercise are a foundation, right? Nobody needs a supplement, or, something down the road. We've got to be focusing on nutrition and exercise first, not in a restrictive way, not in a, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you can't have dinner, like nothing like that. But I just mean focusing on, for the most part, I like an 80-20 kind of a thing. If 80% are you focusing on whole food nutrition, are you eating fruits and vegetables? Are you eating protein with every meal? I teach you, of course, all of that over about 6 to 8 weeks, where we really get in some good habits that are conducive to your lifestyle. Can you exercise at home? Do you have dumbbells at home? Do you have access to a gym? If none of that works, can you walk every day? Can you get outside? Can you get some morning sunlight to get that energy, that vitamin D? So we talk about all of that and really tailor it, because if it's too extreme, you're not going to follow through, right? That's why these extreme detoxes, diets, and things like that, they work for the time that they are, but then, people go back right back to their habits. So it's like, how can we slowly build in these habits that are conducive to your lifestyle, and what you enjoy doing, and not take those things away from you, but just adding in these things that are really you're going to benefit from. So we always start there. And then if it's like, a client will come to me and say, Adrian, I've been doing this for, 3 months, and I've seen some progress, but I feel like I've hit a plateau, or I feel like I don't know what's going on. There's just no movement. So we can do multiple things, then we can look at nutrition again, maybe tweak up your macros a little bit. That's your protein, fats, and carbs that you're eating. Or we can look at, okay, so what else is going on in your life right now? Do you have some added stress that came up recently? Or do we need to do some testing? Stress, mood, and metabolism. Let's test it. Is your cortisol high? Do we really need to work on some stress reduction techniques? Because those things really do make a difference in this, at this age, more than ever.
Yeah, that's true. So I would love for you to just share, maybe a success story of one of your
hmm
clients and just the transformation journey
Yeah.
along, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I love about meeting, and I'm available to clients if they ever want to meet with me, like this on one-on-one. And one of the first things that they always say to me if it's a newer client is, am I really supposed to be eating this much? Like yesterday after dinner, I had to eat a spoonful of peanut butter because I was low on my fats, or I was low, and so just changing that mindset of restriction to, have I eaten enough? Have I eaten enough of this food? Have I eaten enough protein today, or enough carbs, or enough fats? So I was just thinking about this particular client because I met with her a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, I just don't understand. Like, I have been so stressed. I've literally tried everything. I've tried all these different workouts, and I'm eating more than I ever thought that I would. And I feel so good, and I feel confident, and I wake up with more energy. And that's because it's food. Like, as women, we don't think of food as something that gives us energy, right? It's like something we make for the kids, and we're responsible for our families. But I just love that mindset of like, okay, and then that is like a snowball effect, So now she's feeling good. She has more energy. She's in a better mood. She's supporting her family better with her time and with her energy. And then her stress level comes down, and she's sleeping better, and all of these things start to fall into place just because she started with these one or two habits. So I mean, that is like my biggest takeaway, I think, is just that you can just add just small daily habits. It doesn't have to be anything extreme, and they can really make a big difference.
Yeah, no, I love that. So it's just those sustainable habits, right? I feel like those
Absolutely.
small
Mhm.
sustainable habits, I feel are like basically the key word, right? Because it's like you said, I mean, you can hop onto something, but hey, after 6 weeks or whatever, 6 months, are you actually continuing that? I think that's what's important, right? Because you can literally spring back to your old habits so easily. I mean, we're all humans. There's
Yeah,
always
absolutely.
this, you need somebody to keep you accountable. You need something
Mhm.
to keep you going, right? So I think it's a lifelong journey. No,
Definitely,
I love that.
definitely. And those will never, things like, I'm not bashing any one, program or diet or anything like that. But if it's like you can't go out to dinner with your family, or you can't go on vacation, or you can't participate in those things because of something that you're doing, like that just does not work for me. Like we lead a very active social lifestyle. And so I'm like, okay, it was not like whole 30 for me. It was like whole 24 hours because then I had an event and it is what it is. So that's really what I like, the clients that I work with. I'm like, let's work with you and let's not put anything extreme on it. And you have a vacation coming up, bye, have fun. You set up your metabolism to support you on this vacation to make smart choices and eat foods that make you feel good and also have fun, and I'll see you when you get back. So that's always my goal, is for them to be able to enjoy their life and then come right back and start on their habits again that they're so familiar with.
That's awesome. And I know I did this as part of your introduction as well, but I'm curious to know, how do you empower these women to be more
Mhm.
resilient, and how do they bring, energy not to themselves, or well, in addition to themselves, to people around them? Because as you know, I mean, women, right? We're part of raising this, like all of the kids, the family, the parents, whatever. We hold the key to a lot of different things. So
Yeah.
how do you help really bring that resilience in women?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I love that question because the way that I picture it is like we're pouring out, we're always like pouring out to other people, our families, but we have to like pour into that bucket. It's like one of those like beverage dispensers that's always on, right? We're
That's
always
a
like
good
draining.
analogy.
So we have to be putting in at the same level. And that might mean saying no to some things. And that might mean deciding to go for a walk instead of some other obligation. That might mean not, for me it was like, okay, I'm not going to join the PTSO and the this and that, like all of the volunteer things. Like I'll pick and choose a couple, and some weeks I might have to say no. And and sometimes the best thing for me is like I you just really have to learn to know your body's cues. What am I needing right now? Am I needing rest? I really work with my clients, like just really just stop and listen to your body. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I need a nap? Do I need to call a friend? It would a walk with a friend with some social connection, because there are so many different kinds of stress. And it could be as simple as like do those five simple things on your to-do list that have been there for the last week, that are like just like like a little bug in your ear, like oh gosh, it's in the back of my mind like every single day. Maybe if you can just get those five things done, it will feel like a huge weight off your shoulders. So it's really just working with my clients and figuring out what those things are that are going to move the needle towards that resilience, because we cannot keep emptying that cup, if we're not, pouring into whatever our own needs are. And that looks different for everybody. For me, it's like watching a stupid reality TV show sometimes
Yeah.
at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I just need an hour before my kids get home. For some people, it's something else, a book, or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no, I love that a lot analogy, right? Which is, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And I feel it's, it's also another thing when you get on airplanes, right? The first thing they tell you is, don't worry about, your kids or whoever else, but first put on
Hmm.
your oxygen mask, because it's like, first you, which
Yeah.
I know as women, we never really think about it. We're just,
Hmm.
not wired that way. And plus, also feel it's a society telling you all of this over the years. It's always
Right.
about, oh, care for your children. Oh, it's your spouse. Or, hey, then you have aging parents. So it's always about somebody else, but it's never about, have you ever thought about yourself? Because if you don't care for yourself, sorry, you cannot help anybody else, right? So
Yes.
I just feel like we never realize that. I'm so happy that there's so many women, I mean, including you, right, who are now speaking about this, and people are so vocal about it. So everybody's actually thinking about it a lot more than what it
Hmm.
was, definitely, like maybe even 5, 10 years ago.
Totally.
I love
And
it.
there's a lot of guilt that comes with it at first. When I first started working on this for myself, I was like, oh my gosh, what time is it? I've only been sitting here for 5 minutes. I should really get up and do something. So it really is about training yourself, but it is like so liberating once you kind of break through that guilt and really feel like, gosh, you know what? Yeah, I should have gone to the grocery today when I took a nap instead. But look how much more available I am to my family now. And now I have the energy for a workout. I don't mind going for a walk with a friend in the evening because I took just a small amount of time. So it really does make a difference.
No, I love that. I know we're almost, anyway, coming to the end, but I have one last question, which is what advice would you give for women who, well, a lot of them think, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I think it's too late to start, or oh my gosh, I'm already like mid 40s or whatever, close to 50, right? So what
Mhm.
advice would you give women?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, some of my clients over that are 10, 15 years older than me, like I said, I'm 45. Like, I just cannot believe where they're at. Like, they are way ahead of me, physically and all that. And I know it's kind of cliche to say it's never too late, but it's like, okay, so maybe it takes you 6 months or maybe it takes you a year, but that year is going to go by regardless, right? I mean, if you say like, okay, I'm going to give myself a year to really focus on my health and wellness, or even 6 months or 3 months, that 3 months is going to go by regardless. So you might as well use it to increase your strength, your energy, and all of those things. And don't we all? I remember one client told me once, like, my goal is to be going for a run on my 100th birthday. And that's not everybody's goal, but I mean, my parents are in their 80s and they like play golf every day, they travel all the time. Isn't your goal like functional wellness at some point, like in 20, 30, 40 years? Don't we all want to still be active and mobile and be able to run around with our grandkids and do all of those things? Like, don't we want that quality of life? So I think that's what I would say is think about the long-term quality of life goal, functional fitness, carrying your groceries out of the car and not needing support from somebody and all those things. Those are things we don't think about now, but what we do now is going to make a difference in those years.
Yes, love it. Thank you, Adrian. So, as
Thank
we end this session, I would love for you to just share with the audience. I mean, do you have a website or a social media page? Any information that you want to share and how they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. I mean, the best way to reach me is through Instagram at Living Well with Adrian. You can send me a direct message. I respond to those personally. And you can also find my email address there and you can reach out to me there. I have a very small webpage called Faster Weight with Adrian. So you can go there as well. But probably the best way to start is just to send me a direct message and we can start a conversation and see if I can help you.
Hey, thank you so much for taking this time. And I know we've had all of these time differences as well. So I really appreciate you staying up today to
Absolutely.
take this call. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much fun.